The following film podcast frequently contains adult content, including foul language and descriptions of adult situations. Spoilers for the films discussed occur often. Listener discretion is advised. Now take it away, Dr. Rausch.
They must be destroyed on sight.
Okay, welcome back to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight, episode 151, and I'm your host, Lee. To know them means to eliminate them, Russell. And I am joined yet again by my co-host, Daniel. If you answer yes, then you must accept all the necessary consequences, Harper. How you doing, sir?
I'd say I'm doing well, but my roof started leaking as I was finishing this movie this afternoon. So, the roof in my kitchen, I'm currently have a bucket. And we'll figure that out tomorrow. But yeah, everything's going great. Otherwise,
yeah, this one was a tough one to pull quotes from because everything was so dire. It's like I can't really make that funny.
It's hard to make a joke out of revolutionary, anti-revolutionary, counter-revolutionary violence.
Yeah,
not one of the fun ones. Definitely
no. But we're going to be looking at something pretty interesting here: the Battle of Algiers from 1966. But before we get into that, I'm going to get into one comment we got on one of our YouTube videos. This is on the YouTube version of the rundown, and I think we did another one on that episode, didn't we? Wasn't it Commando? I think, or.
No, I think we did those as separate episodes. But
did we? Okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember. We're so far back now.
We did Commando and Running Man together.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So this is from, and this is a foreign comment, so this is where the humor comes from this. My racism trying to decipher what the fuck is being said here. TGT and PGT Funny Video spelled VEDIO, posted this comment. Kanky Chuddy. 2 words, Kanky Chuddy. And I was like, what the fuck is that? I tried running it through some translators, didn't work too well. So I went to our old friends at the Urban Dictionary because it's the most reliable source on the internet to find out what the fuck.
Clearly.
Yeah. Narrowing it down, either this person is saying bosom friend and fuck. So that might be a proposition or something along those lines.
Sure.
Or they're saying prostitute and any black person with a penis in excess of 10 inches, which is apparently what a chuddy is. So I don't know. Maybe they have some info on The Rock, who, is...
It's entirely... Or Christopher Walken. Who knows?
Could be. Maybe Christopher Walken is a black prostitute with a 10-inch penis?
I'm just going to let that one go. But somebody commenting on our thing. I mean, what I'm thinking based on the experience of that comment in this movie is that wherever this person is, I hope the French colonized that place. I do not actually wish that. That's a terrible thing to wish, but
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, I think the commenter was Bengali or something along those lines.
Oh yeah,
but. It was one of those weird Arabic-looking languages, like Turkish or Indian or Bengali.
Sure,
totally different things, of course.
Yeah, let's not dig any deeper into this. I think our implicit, westernized white people racism has gone far enough on this one.
Yeah,
especially for this film. This is really not the time.
It's pretty bad. The way, especially talking about Middle Easterners and yeah. Okay, moving on. We can talk about what we watched in the last little while, and I'll throw over to you first there, Daniel.
Just one thing I'll mention. I watched the Ballad of Buster Scruggs on Netflix, and that is really fucking good. It will almost certainly be on my top 10 list at the end of the year. Might even, if you're up for covering it, I'm kind of down to cover it at some point.
You can do it.
This is definitely, if we are going to, I'll try not to give too much away, but everything Lee said in the previous episode, pretty much absolutely true. One of the things I really like about it is the Coen brothers are known for, sometimes better at writing setups and conclusions, in some of their films, and this really is like a bunch of short stories that they had written over the last 25 years that they had just adapted into a movie, which means you can just kind of have the little dark, twisted, humorous, black humor moments, and then you just move on to something else, and it's kind of glorious at that. I really like some of the characters in this. I really like some of the stories. I really like the tone. I really love the title story, the Buster Scruggs story, which I want you to just don't know anything about it. The less you know going into that one, I think the more you're going to enjoy it. Yeah, I think we are gonna have to cover this at some point. Hell, we could do it next week for all I care. But so I'll kind of leave it at that. But very highly recommended. Very, very good film, and got a couple of Oscar nominations this week too. So
nice, good.
Yeah, for adapted screenplay and costumes, and I think there was one more, but didn't get Best Picture or anything like that. But
man, I wanted Tom Waits to get best actor.
Yeah, unfortunately, didn't happen for him. At least I don't believe it did. I don't have him in front of me, but no, it did get Best Adapted Screenplay nod. In a lot of ways, these screenplay nominations are kind of the Best Picture nominations. Yeah, like in the when you actually get in the swing of things, no, those are the real ones.
It should at least get Best Song or something like that.
Oh, Best Song. That's
Oh, was it?
For. Yes. Joe
was a gambler. He'll gamble nevermore. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. It's great stuff. If nothing else, watch the first 10 minutes. If you're not hooked, then I don't know why you're listening to this podcast.
Yeah, great. One thing I watched of note was The Incredibles 2.
Sure.
And I can definitely see why you're disappointed in it, because it's basically just the same fucking movie as the first one. Although definitely a lot lighter in tone. The first Incredibles had lots of people dying in it.
Right, that's true.
Yeah, and this one is just lighthearted. We're going to pull our punches and just make it like Mr. Mom, and Samuel L. Jackson is the cool black friend, and you have your stressed out teenage daughter, and I thought the jokes landed pretty well in it, though. I thought it was good for that.
I put it on my kind of bottom list, not necessarily because it's awful, because I don't think it's awful, but more just on the it's just disappointing that they didn't do more with it,
right?
And 14 years after the first one, you're just kind of let's just remake that. It does seem like kind of a missed opportunity because of so many other great superhero films that are being made these days. That let's just pretend none of that happened, and just kind of it's just fine, and that's what Pixar should never be. Fine, those kind of films should never kind of exist in that. It's okay. It should be. I expect more from them.
I think this would have worked a lot better if it was released the year after the first one. If it had come in 2007 or something, the original's 2004. So if it come out, a few years later, I would have felt very differently about it. I know it's a continuation of the first film, but it exists to make $1 billion, and I think it kind of did that. And so whatever, it's just purely commercial product. It's effective at the thing it does. I just wish it had done more. Yeah,
or anything really, I have seen some interesting conversation about how it evens out some of the, some of the sort of the bad politics of the first one. It's sort of better on those issues, but not even in a. I don't know. It's just hard for me to work up any enthusiasm at all for really digging into it in any way.
Yeah. No, I looked at it as fluff and kind of left it at that. It was enjoyable fluff, kind of.
Yeah. I will say just on that, I watched a little bit of Shrek. It was just kind of on the television. My wife put it on from one of the services that we just magically have through.
I've never watched any of those films.
Oh, okay. The first one I really liked upon theatrical release. The second one was garbage, and I never bothered with the third, or the Puss in Boots or any of that kind of stuff. But I saw the first one and really, really liked it when I was 20 years old in theaters. I will say, man, the technology of these CG animated films has just moved So because that movie looked amazing when I saw it on the big screen in 2000, and now it's like, man, everything just kind of looks plastic and cartoony, and just kind of. I mean, you can't blame it for being 18, 19 years old. I mean, I'm not landing on that. It's just sort of like. Also, that one was kind of the original of that kind of fractured fairy tale DreamWorks film, you know. And they just kind of ended up using that same kind of pop culture reference, put cool songs in a movie, kind of. They started using that formula way too often, and the whole thing just kind of gets tarnished by that. I mean, the first one was really good upon an original release, but I rewatched the last 30 minutes of it or so, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't know that I would recommend this today too. Yeah, no. We've just moved too far from this at this point. But,
watch Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah, no, watch Into the Spider-Verse above almost any of these kind of films at this point.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to play a couple podcast promos and some music from the film, and we'll be right back to cover the Battle of Algiers.
You ungodly warlock.
Hollywood released the first sequel in 1916.
I'm sure you can all say it along with me. Los Locos kick your butt. Los Locos kick your face. Los Locos kick your balls into outer space.
Which is poetry.
Yeah, it is. But not enough gangs have theme songs.
And they've been churning them out ever since.
The catcher, played by Tom Bergeron, whose name is...
Tom Berenger.
Tom Berenger. Did I say Tom Bergeron?
You said
Tom Bergeron from Dancing with the Stars is in this movie.
Hi, I'm the catcher.
How do you sort out the good?
Fred is the real hero of this movie.
Oh.
He's employing the homeless. He's
He
getting them
really
back on their
is.
feet. Yeah. And he promised them McDonald's.
From the bad.
Usually he's crying a lot more when he's making this much sexual small talk with a woman.
Yeah.
So kudos to him for keeping it together.
From the ugly.
True fact, at this point in the movie, I wrote pointless.
I had written birds.
I think I threw my notebook 3 times?
Yeah, at the end I was having to put it back into your hand. But I wrote birds.
Join Brad and Jeremy.
So Sue sneaks out.
Yep, Snoo sneaks.
I couldn't say Snoo sneaks.
Snoo sneaks out.
Snoo sneaks out. Snoo sneaks out to go spy in the military.
So Sue sneaks out. to go talk to the Silver Surfer because she wants to figure out.
To the Silver Surfer.
To the Silver Surfer.
I think we completely lost it. 8 episodes in. I think we're crazy.
We're done. Good night, folks.
On the Deuce Podcast. Check us out on Facebook at thedeucepodcast.podbean.com, Stitcher, iTunes, or Google Play.
Well, I've never touched a bra before. Don't yell at me.
You never touched a bra?
Well, no, I mean, whatever. I've moved. I mean, I don't shop for... Just shut up.
And remember, the sequel is king.
Howdy, folks. Like blood, violence, freaks and nature.
You come to the right place. My name is Gary, and I'm your guide to Cinema Beef Podcast. Every episode, we not only deliver film reviews, we also dismantle some of your favorite and most hated films. Sometimes for the better, and sometimes for the worse.
Hey, you shut your face! If we want to hear you talk, I will shove my arm up your ass and work your mouth like a puppet.
Alright, calm down. Every show I hope to have a new co-host, podcasters and listeners alike. That's right, I'm talking to you people. I take all comers.
You're sluts.
That's not very nice. The only rules, well, let's ask the best cooler in the business.
All you have to do is follow 3 simple rules. 1, never underestimate your opponent. Expect the unexpected. 2, take it outside. Never start anything inside the bar unless it's absolutely necessary. And 3, be nice.
So join the insanity and please vent your frustrations. I'm available on TalkShoe, iTunes, and Stitcher Smart Radio. And remember, here at the Cinema Beef Podcast, if you got beef, I've got the grinder.
You ungodly warlock.
The Battle of Algiers, 1966.
Nous sommes arrivés à la moyenne de 4,2 attentats par jour. Oui, il faut distinguer les attaques individuelles et les attentats à la bombe. Nous disons qu'il y a une minorité qui s'impose par la terreur et la violence. Nous devons agir sur cette minorité dans le but de l'isoler et de la détruire.
يصعب للشعب باش يبدا ثورة ويصعب له بزاف باش يوصلها ويصعب له أكثر وأكثر باش ينتصر.
La France doit-elle rester en Algérie? Si vous répondez encore oui, vous devez en accepter toutes les conséquences nécessaires.
Directed by Gillo Pontecorvo and written by Franco Solinas and Gillo Pontecorvo. It is starring Gene Martin as Colonel Matthew, Yassif Sadi as Dafar, Brahim Hadjaji as Ali Lapointe, Tommaso Neri as Captain, Sama Kabrash as Fatha, Ugo Pelletti as Captain, Fusa El-Qadar as Halima, and Mohammed bin Qasim as Petit Omar. And the synopsis I pulled from IMDB, and I actually looked through these ones because I figured we had to find something that would at least cover this a little bit. Filmed in a semi-documentary format, this film deals with the Battle of Algiers from 1956 to 57, part of the broader fight for Algerian independence from 1954 to 1962, from French colonial rule. The rebels began their attacks by shooting policemen and other government officials. When they start bombing public places in the European sector, cafes, restaurants, the Air France office, the authorities send in crack military units. Through large-scale arrests and torture, the colonel in charge focuses on locating and eliminating the leaders of the movement, and that's from Gary KMCD. And yeah, that's a good little back-of-the-box synopsis to get you into this. I think.
The one thing is, I wouldn't say it's shot in a semi-documentary format as much as it's kind of shot in, kind of photoreal or kind of near-realist style. Mm-hmm. It's shot to kind of look like newsreel footage, but it's not like shot like a documentary.
It bounces even within one scene without cutting. Mm-hmm. It kind of bounces between those two aesthetics. I find like there's just the way they do things sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, but it's not like it's not doing like kind of a mockumentary kind of thing. Which I think again, I don't think that you'd necessarily come away from that synopsis thinking that, but it's worth clarifying that visually. It's shot very kind of in that style, but not necessarily structurally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this was an interesting one to get into because I've never seen this before. I'd never even heard of this before until Jack suggested it for us to do. What's your sort of general thoughts on this, Daniel?
This is a first time watch for me. This had been on my radar for a really long time. It was kind of something to see, but also. oh yeah, let's watch a really depressing film about revolutionaries getting hunted down and tortured and killed. That's not always what you're in the mood for on a Saturday night, but it's a great film. I mean, obviously, this is one of the most kind of historically significant films about this kind of thing. Very rarely do we see a film that's kind of this. I don't want to say even-handed. I don't want to say realistic, but this kind of honest in its portrayal of these kinds of movements and just kind of the way that this stuff works. Reminds me a lot of City of God in a way, the 2002 film about Brazil, about, kind of drug lords in Brazil, in terms of being very kind of close to the ground, in terms of being sympathetic to, I mean, kind of everybody's a little bit sympathetic and everybody's a little bit, shades of gray and shades of black, and, it just kind of tries to portray the reality of what's going on, and it doesn't ask us to sort of make a moral case for it. And, it's, as far as I'm concerned, revolutionary movements against colonialism, I'm completely on the side of the rebels, but they do some pretty awful shit in this film, and this does seem to be, just kind of based on kind of reading up a bit on it. There are some composite characters. This isn't, kind of a straight retelling of a real story. But pretty much this is kind of what happened, and it's a really effective at doing the thing it does. It tells that story. It gets it literally is a film that is shown to people combating guerrilla movements in the global South, and it does that for a reason. It's completely, it's got to be. I mean, if you're a film fan, this has got to be on your list of films to watch. A lot going on in this film, kind of politically, character-wise. Before we get into that, I mean, what are your kind of initial thoughts, I guess?
I was pretty taken back at how effective this is. You're right. It's very sort of even-handed in the way it treats the subject matter. Like, I mean, this is based on the memoirs of one of the guys who actually acts in the movie as well. He was one of the NLF, or the whatever, National Liberation Front, or whatever.
I think he's the guy that brings Ali in at the beginning, like that guy. He was. Yeah. So this is based on his book, although the script was rewritten because apparently the script that he wrote for it from his memoirs was very, very pro-Algerian. Like it was very, very biased on their side. Although not to be fair, this film is also pretty, pro revolution, It
is.
but yeah, no. It's not a hagiography though. It doesn't kind of give you. It's not a propaganda piece in favor of the revolution. But
it's more balanced. It shows the sort of shades of gray. Nobody in this is totally clean. Everyone does awful things in this film, whether you believe in their cause or not. I found it interesting though, because it sort of feels like this is just after France is beaten out of Vietnam, basically. Like they got their asses kicked in Vietnam, and it feels like almost that the paratroopers they bring in have something to prove. And and it feels like they've intensified the things they're doing in order to get back a little bit of a pride or whatever for losing so badly in Vietnam.
They got to get their balls back, man. Come on, that's that's kind of the feeling they have.
It's definitely a complicated subject to sort of tackle, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know too much about the actual revolution and the sort of socio-political things that went on. But I mean, I have no massive love of Islam or any other religion, but I sort of recognize that people should be left to govern themselves in their own country outside intervention. And of course, unless there's like special cases where there's human rights abuses or another nation is in danger from this nation that's governing themselves in a certain way.
Well, France had taken over Algiers. This was part of the big scramble for Africa in the 19th century,
right?
And they had been, extracting, the resources of this region for 130 years at the time. This, the entire history. I mean, I've read some books about this period, not necessarily in Algeria, but some books about like the Belgian Congo and stuff. And I mean, Heart of Darkness is not, parts of Heart of Darkness are basically just a documentary, all right? Colonial administrators with severed heads and that kind of shit, all over the place, torturing people for rubber. I'm not sure exactly what they were extracting out of it's probably oil, I would imagine.
I imagine so. It's Northern Africa, right? So
right, it's Northern Africa, right? It's right on the Mediterranean, so I'm not sure what resource they're extracting. And again, I apologize for kind of not having that. I didn't do the due diligence on this, but I mean, that's why these colonial powers are there. And I mean, look, I'm an American. My country has been, taking over half the world and extracting resources from them for the last, the entire time we've been a country, but particularly since World War II. I mean, we are currently existing in an occupation of, Afghanistan that's in its 18th year, 17th year. And we keep sticking around in Iraq. We've got, 1,000 to 10,000 military bases around the world. My cultural hands are not clean on this, but that's why we stand against these kind of imperialist ambitions, right? And I mean, I think it speaks. I mean, it's funny that we're recording this in the week where, right now, as we're speaking, there's an attempted, coup in Venezuela, which, like a U.S. backed coup, which is going to, topple a democratically elected leader who is probably not the nicest person and who has kind of exacerbated the conditions in Venezuela, but also it was, not a puppet of, Western interests. Right. So we're seeing that. We're also seeing the end of the U.S. government shutdown is this week. And that was ended by, basically a general strike among air traffic controllers and the like. And so, it feels very, of the moment. I mean, you're watching this and, like the torture sequences. And I just kept thinking about Abu Ghraib, which is, I mean, that's a decade and a half ago. But, still, this didn't end in 1957 or 1962. This is still going on. It has an immediacy, I think, because of that. This is not really history.
Yeah, one of the biggest things I liked about this is it at least treated it treated the Middle Eastern people in this fairly. It didn't treat them like stereotypes, and
they're human beings. They're human beings.
Yeah, and it made a point, as much as it is sort of fairly balanced, and although slightly slanted towards the Algerian side of things. It made a really good sort of poignant look at colonialism and the sort of institutionalized racism that comes with it, and it's made very apparent in a lot of scenes, because you basically see a lot of this stuff is shot right on the streets, and it's actual, extras. It's not like there's very few professional actors in this film at all. I think there's like one or two, honestly.
Right. Yeah.
And so it gives you a nice little sort of different slices of day-to-day life in the city, and it gives you, a more authentic feel of the actual culture that's going on in the city. Like the biggest conflict, I guess, that sort of started all this is the conflict between the NLF and basically the French citizens that were like born and came up in Algeria is sort of like where the main conflict is, because most of them are, Christian or Jewish. And it sort of stemmed from a sort of a religious conflict, from what I understand.
Yeah, I mean, there's a religious conflict. I mean, whenever you have these sort of like settler colonialist societies, you get, kind of a resistance from the indigenous population. And in some cases, things go better than others, we can say. And there's this kind of inherent tension there. And when you have kind of everybody having a solidarity and kind of working together, and, without these sort of like class and racial divisions, you can have, sort of something that looks a lot more like a kind of even kind of sharing of cultures. But that is not the norm of, what's going on in these societies. I mean, one of the interesting things is you have these three women who plant these bombs at one point. And what they do is they essentially like take off their traditional wear and put on Western clothes,
right?
And then go into these, what are essentially, like Western establishments playing, rock music and stuff. And that's where they decide to bomb. And I mean, it is, as a Western, I like rock music. I'm like, hey, I'd go hang out in that bar. I'm not, there's no difficulty there. But also, this is kind of a mark of an oppressive outside culture. And, the film doesn't really comment on it. It just kind of presents it as something that's happening. And, something that was ultimately effective. What happens is the revolutionary movement, has to kind of step up its tactics in order to be effective, because they start off kind of killing individual cops and that sort of thing, and they move up to bombings. And then as they escalate, then the repression escalates as well. And in some ways, the citizenry is just kind of trapped in between these diametrically opposed forces. And yet, the film definitely shows that in the end they do kind of take the side of the FLN, not the French.
Yeah, there was a name for them, but I didn't write them down. What they were sort of considered. But yeah, it's interesting. Like first off, that montage that comes early in the film where they started basically assassinating officials and stuff, like that's pretty fucking effective. Like that, it just goes boom, 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 boom. It's like another person killed, another person killed, another person killed, and then move on. Where the sort of the religious oppression and differences sort of come out, where you get the real culture clash, they make mention of alcohol and drugs,
right?
Where that gets cracked down by the revolutionaries. They're like, we got to get this out of our society. And you have this really interesting scene where there's this guy he might just be drunk from a bender, or he might be a junkie. You don't really know. But he's walking down the street. He gets chastised by one woman who basically sort of beats on him with her fists a little bit and pushes him away. And he's just trying to go about his business and go down the street. He eventually gets harassed by all these children, and this mob of like 20 kids kick the shit out of him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really surreal moment, and I mean, I feel like it is kind of a how are we supposed to feel about this kind of moment, and because it is that the revolutionaries don't have to be like decent people that we agree with on every issue. We don't have to agree with them on everything to think like, but also you shouldn't be exploited for your labor and resources, and I feel like that kind of perspective gets lost sometimes, where it's like, well, I mean, the standard line, I mean, people who apologize for these kinds of wars today, well, I mean, we're bringing democracy to the Middle East, or look at how they treat women, they treat women terribly, and so like it's perfectly okay for us to just like air bomb them. One of the lessons that we've kind of learned from this era, and I say we as like the U.S. military apparatus, the lesson that Western powers have learned is like, well, you just don't put troops on the ground. You just bomb the shit out of everybody. You know? So, you drone them. Let's kill 20,000 people with drones over 8 years. Oh,
yeah. So, all those women you want to liberate, you've killed half of them already if your fucking drone strikes. I mean,
right. We were after that. We were after this one guy, and we got that guy. We also got like 20 of people who were standing near him.
Yeah, we killed his 2 daughters, and
it turns out, and the surviving family members are now just as angry at us as he was.
Yeah, they're even more radicalized, and now they're coming after us.
Right. Yeah, but it's okay. We do this from afar, and no Americans were killed, so it's fine.
Yeah.
It's also. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just about to say, no Americans were killed until 10 years later when they knock another building down or something.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also interesting that the film kind of plays in with public opinion and sort of like international opinion. Plays a lot in this. It's not just, I mean, that is the kind of revolutionary acts or the counter-revolutionary acts are not really kind of the point. The point is, to kind of manipulate the way that people feel about kind of what's going on. And in fact, you even get this kind of like press conference later in the film where you have the kind of the revolutionary, like the academic who kind of started the whole thing, and he has his say. And then at a certain point, like the colonel, like the leader of the imperialist forces,
the paratroopers,
he basically just goes, this is going in a direction I don't like. Get him out of here now. And then he starts answering questions, and he gives, I mean, again, he says, if we think that France should be in Algeria, and everybody except the radical communists thinks that France should be in Algeria, if that's how we think, then these things are necessary. This is what is necessary to win, and that's the exact argument that every force like this makes all the time.
Yep.
I don't know. I feel like it's not even. I don't even want to discuss this as a film. It's just like, well, yeah, this is just like.
It's just what happens.
This is just what happens,
It's what is happening.
It is what is happening right now in our name, I do like that character. What's his name here? I don't have it in front of me.
Colonel Matthew.
Yeah, Colonel Matthew. I really like that he is portrayed reasonably sympathetically. Like he is portrayed as a person, kind of in here to do a job. He says, we get called fascists, and yet like we're the ones. Some of us actually suffered in like concentration camps during the war, and because this is 1957, so a lot of these people would have fought in the war. He is allowed, to kind of be human and to like kind of make the case for torture, the case for this. I don't agree with the case he makes. No. Obviously, I mean it's a disgusting thing that no one should ever do. But, he's basically like, look, these people have tactics that, they convince their people not to talk for 24 hours. And so if you're, so they have time, so the information we get from them is going to be useless. And so if we are going to track these people down, we've got to get information out of them faster than that. And the only way to do that is fucking torture people. Completely logical, reasonable conclusion, and the answer is if we're going to go after these revolutionaries, this is the methods we have to use. And I mean, ultimately, part of the point of kind of publicizing this, part of the point, if you're a revolutionary, you sort of force the actions on the part of the imperial power as a way of kind of showing their brutality and as a way to kind of get public opinion on your side and to kind of force pressure to make it stop, essentially. I mean, again, it's like it's such a like terrible, awful thing that go ahead and torture us, and we're just going to publicize that. And then, of course, what do? They clamp down on the propaganda presses, and they start going after newspapers and go after today the internet. Oh, you can't you can't tweet about this. The journalists aren't allowed to. You keep the journalists in little boxes so they can't see it, and you control the information, and then you can just go torture anybody you want. And who cares, except for, a few radical communists who think maybe the United States shouldn't be taking over half the world. Those crazy people. Again, it's just like it just comes right back to, like 2019, man.
Yeah, those crazy socialists have only been the victims of millions of like, well, not millions, but at least dozens of U.S. coups over the last 100 years, almost.
No, absolutely. I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about, like between, I think, like 1898 and 1994, there was a U.S.-backed military coup, a successful U.S.-backed military coup somewhere in South America every 28 months.
Yeah.
And for 100 years, every like 2 years and a couple of months, some country gets its government toppled by the United States. And
whoever wants to play ball and give resources to the U.S., we'll fund you.
Yeah, no, and fuck the people. That's ultimately kind of what's going on in a lot of this. Is like the people are often not considered by these. Like the new the new government takes power, and then they're not really doing anything for the people either. Here you actually do see. I mean, they do the general strike, which is a really interesting kind of move. They organize a general strike so that no labor is being done and no resources are being extracted. And they do this, and then they also like stop any of the like revolutionary activities. So all the bombings, all the shootings, everything stops at the same time, and it's kind of part of a one kind of big push. You also see them like providing resources, like providing food to people and giving people water and giving people like places to stay and that sort of thing. It is kind of one of those things that these revolutionary movements, one of the things that they do in real life, if they are successful, is provide kind of material support for the kind of broader population. And I think it's really great that that's in the film, because I think that's a part that gets missed. I mean, so many films like this, just take the side of the, of the U.S. government, like how many fucking movies have we seen that's like, then we just take down the rebels in South America,
even if they're critical of the U.S.'s methods, they still side with the U.S.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's just kind of the standard line you see in all of these things. And that's, partly, I think we talked about this in the fucking Iron Eagle episode, things, but like the U.S. government, like starting in the early 80s and running up to today. I mean, literally, right now, the U.S. government essentially has a program where they work with Hollywood to essentially give access to kind of military. You can use bases and you can use ships and you can use kind of various things for free in your film if the military gets to like vet what's in the movie. And so therefore, like, films just don't get made with sort of any kind of budget. Nobody makes anything that's really critical of U.S. military power because everybody's kind of playing with the same like batch. Everybody wants the money, you know. You can get like close to criticizing the U.S. military, but it's always like, oh, that's just a bad apple. That's just like one bad guy. You know?
It's always like the bad colonel in the unit, and then Dwayne the Rock Johnson walks in and hoorah, and he beats up the bad colonel, and everything's solved. You know.
Yeah, and then the villagers all like cheer for the U.S. occupation to continue because
thank you for liberating us.
We will be greeted as liberators, That's the way it works. But
it's fucking, it's interesting because the resistance in this, the entire Battle of Algiers, it's being fought in a way where they don't really necessarily have a chance of winning through actual violence. It's much more trying to turn the rest of the population against the colonial powers.
Right.
So they'll rebel, and by the time you get to the end of the film, you see that starting to happen, right? Where you see big protests in the streets.
The revolutionary movement has kind of stuck around long enough to kind of get its message out, and it's kind of made its point until ordinary people throwing rocks in the street at soldiers. Mm-hmm. If you get enough of them, you can win because soldiers don't like firing on unarmed civilians. Ultimately, this is just part of the tactic, and you really have to dehumanize your enemy in order to get soldiers to fire on unarmed civilians. Basically, if you just kind of treat them as all disease-carrying terrorists who are going to come over and bring drugs and they bring crime, and they're definitely not sending their bests. I mean, it's the same propaganda war that's happening, and again with like the migrant caravans, a group of like starving people, like desperate for work, fleeing, drug wars created by, U.S. drug policy, trying to literally trekking on foot across an entire country and trying to find like safe refuge. No, this is like an army of invading military age men, who are like, and it's just. Fuck you. Like, I mean, Jesus Christ, you fucking assholes. But anyway, this one was definitely going to get political. There was no way to not make this a political episode. There's no whackety schmackety do in this one. This is
not really. It's
straight up,
Yeah, the only time you get humor out of this is just how fucking ridiculous it gets. Like it's so offensively ridiculous that you got to kind of laugh just to fucking steady yourself a little bit.
Yeah. I think my the one moment where I got a little chuckle was after he's captured, after the colonel is captured, sort of the academic guy, and he's turned himself in, and they're sitting in the back of that car, and there's almost a "we're not so different, you and I" moment. Yeah. They really do have this meeting of the minds where it's like, there's no Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite go there, it still stays on this side of reality, but there is a neat little exchange there where you feel like there is a kind of I don't want to say a mutual respect, but the colonel definitely has like some level of respect for the revolutionary.
They both understand each other's position, basically. But,
right. Yeah. And there's an earlier scene that I really enjoyed where, they do kind of have the conversation where, two of the revolutionaries kind of have a conversation about like their methods and what is,
Oh yeah. They make a point of, we're going to have to do some nasty shit at the beginning to turn the population. So we're going to have to kill some civilians.
Right.
Yeah. They make it pretty clear. It's like, we're going to have to do some bad things. We're going to have to kill some civilians to get them on our side,
Well, and the academic gets asked in that press conference, do you think it's right to use like babies' bonnets as, delivery system for bombs? And it's like, well, we use that because that's what we have. France has, bombers. If they will give us their bombers, we'll stop using the bonnets. So, and it's like,
he makes a good point.
That moment I'm thinking about kind of Israel-Palestine. All the propaganda is all, Palestinians attacking Israeli soldiers. And then like what happens? Well, Israeli soldiers are literally like, sniping at children on the other side of the border. Jesus Christ, you fucking assholes.
Yeah, fuck Israel, by the way.
Yeah. Which is not to say we are anti-Semites here. We're definitely pro-Jewish, anti-Israel. That's the official line here.
I'm good with anyone who's not trying to grind a whole other race under their fucking feet. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, fair enough,
You can be as Jewish as you want, as long as you're not trying to oppress and destroy a whole other people.
Right. We're against the military dictatorship. The right-wing authoritarian government. We're not against human beings with a particular ethnic or religious background.
Exactly. But yeah, this was really good. I mean, the basically mostly credited as a Ennio Morricone score, but there's shit. Did I even write his fucking name down? I should have. God damn it. Gillo Pontecorvo, the director, I guess, also was in on the music for this, but he couldn't take full credit because of some weird melodist composer classification in Italy, which made it that he required another composer as well to be in it with him, which is okay. So he got Morricone. And
do you think that's the only reason they put that dum 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 dum? Which it's a great piece of music. It feels a little out of place in this film.
It's weird because you're kind of
expecting. It feels like suddenly I'm watching The Dirty Dozen or something.
Yeah, it's weird. It sounds like a sort of a exploitation movie score in this very serious sort of semi-docudrama thing, and you're kind of expecting. I don't know. I guess I'd be expecting like some Middle Eastern kind of thing going on, like some sort of snake charmer music or something racist as that, like.
No, I would expect it to be as diegetic as possible, honestly. Like street music sort of stuff. Yeah. But I guess they stuck it in there, and I mean it is like very deliberately. These are the paratroopers coming in to wreak havoc and do evil. It's almost like playing like the Imperial March from Star Wars or something.
Yeah, it kind of is.
It feels almost like we're putting our finger on that button just a little bit harder than maybe the film is quite ready to. It's almost a satirical move, right? But I don't know. It seemed a little out of place, but I think it's effective. And of course, I love the piece of music. But
honestly, I mean, if you were going to point out any part of this film as being propaganda, maybe it would be the soundtrack. The way it tries to sway you,
Yeah. Well, and the extended torture scenes, which
I thought it was interesting that it opened up with the aftermath of a torture. It didn't show it to you.
So it doesn't, and then you don't really get to see any of it until really much later on, until about 3/4 of the way through the film is when you really get kind of that extended stuff. And see, let's just say if you're in history, as we all are, but if you're in history and you're wondering, am I the good guy in this situation, and you're torturing someone, the answer is no. It's just the answer is no.
Yeah, you're as, at the very least, you're as big a monster as the person you think is a monster that you're victimizing.
Right.
Even indeed, if you have that opinion of the person you're victimizing, usually it's probably not even that. It's just you're a monster,
right? And I mean, to be just clear about it, I mean the torture sequences in this film are actually fairly light in terms of what is actually done to human beings even today. But I mean, some of the stuff in like Argentina and Chile during the 70s was just atrociously bad, and like orders of magnitude worse than what we see in this film, and what we see in this film is pretty fucking bad. Just to be clear, this is still kind of fun and games. We can actually show this in a movie version of this.
Isn't there? I was sort of, while I was watching it, I did fall asleep briefly early on. And that was just because I was really super tired. It's not that I didn't like the movie. Was there not a guillotine scene in the prison?
I might have missed it. I didn't see one.
I thought I saw the guy who becomes radicalized and then brought into the movement in prison because he's just like a street hustler who gets caught. I thought there was a part where where he watches a prisoner be led out and have his head chopped off in the guillotine.
It's entirely possible. I just turned away in that second, but
France, if I'm not mistaken, they use that as their corporal punishment up until the 70s.
Yeah, no, it was standard. You know, like if you're going to execute someone, you know, use the guillotine. It's the new fancy modern thing to do. And
well, I mean, also when you think about it, it's probably the most efficient way it's ever been done. When you look at like how many modern methods fail the first time,
right?
It's like you put a guy in a gas chamber, or you do like the chemical execution, and it doesn't take the first time.
Yeah, no.
And then the guy's like spazzing out on the table, and you got to pump the chemicals in him again. Or like, fuck, man.
Well, I mean, just God, we're talking about colonialism and capital punishment in this episode. Yeah, this is really the fun one, you know.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the lesbian vampires and that. No, let's not. But, 1 week, lesbian vampires. Let's do a goofy, like, sex comedy series. And then, like, colonialism and capital punishment. No, I mean, the whole reason that we don't just use a firing squad or a hanging scaffold is that, it's like we're trying to make the process more humane. We're trying to, distance ourselves emotionally from it by turning it into something that's scientific or something that's, like more, if you're just going to have chemicals pumped into you and we can, like, kind of control that and we can restrain you and you just kind of fall asleep or, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, the whole point is that the whole idea of taking someone's life by this, activity of the state is, like, inherently a barbaric thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea that, we're going to make it more humane just ends up making it more monstrous. Like it would, if you're going to execute me, just put me in front of a post and put a bullet in my head, it's much more honest than, like pretending, we're going to make it easier by like electrocuting you painlessly or whatever.
Honestly, I would want the guillotine.
Yeah.
If I had the choice, I'd want the guillotine, because if someone shoots me in the head, there's a slight chance that bullet's just going to curve around my skull, and I'm not going to die the first time.
Right.
If a big blade comes down and chops my head off, that's science, bitch. I'm not going to be living. So.
Just hope the blade is sharp. That's the key.
It comes down, it stops halfway through my neck, and I'm still alive but paralyzed.
or it like it, like those Play-Doh dispensers, where you and it just kind of like squishes out. That's I just had this like cartoony image of your neck just like splooting out like like Play-Doh.
Maybe they could just catapult me into a volcano or something. I don't know. Yeah, capital punishment is awful anyway. So yeah. But this was. Well, I can't say it was a lot of fun to watch, but it was definitely interesting to watch.
It's probably on my top 10 of the year,
Yeah, I think so as well. I've already got 2 on my top 10 now. Fucking good.
Yeah, me too. So there you go.
Yeah.
God, do I have 3 now? Oh man, that's.
Oh, Jesus, we're already racking them up.
Yeah, well, we're 1 month in the year. We got to start watching some shittier movies, man.
Yeah, we really need to fucking take it down a couple notches.
No more masterpieces, goddammit.
Yeah, fuck this shit. Let's find some really bad Franco films. Because of its contentious pro-Algerian politics, the film wasn't released in France until 1971. Even then, I think it was released in like censored forms.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, the character of Colonel.
I just imagine, like the censored version. It turns out that they just make the Colonel an American, and yeah, we brought in a really bad guy to do this bit, and then they have him like a little CG cowboy hat on him or something, He's like, speaking with the Texan accent, we got to take care of them Arabs, that's the.
Well, I tell you what, Pilgrim, we got to take care of these Arabs. God, he's got like some Roy Rogers pistols.
Wayne. That's awesome. Yeah.
I had this problem in the Vietnam with the Green Berets. But yeah, the character of Colonel Mathieu is loosely based on the real-life General Jacques Massu. Right-wing elements of the French army led by General Massu seized power in Algiers and threatened to conduct an assault on Paris involving paratroopers and armed forces based at Rambouillet unless Charles de Gaulle was placed in charge of the Republic of France. So that was like I think that was de Gaulle being put back in power, or was that the first time he was put in power? I can't remember. But this definitely sent waves. This whole revolution sent waves into French society for decades afterwards.
Yeah.
In 2003, as you mentioned, the New York Times reported that the Pentagon screened this film for officers and civilian experts who were discussing the challenges faced by the U.S. military forces in Iraq. The flyer inviting guests to the screening reads, "How to win a battle against terrorism and lose the war of ideas."
Maybe if they'd taken that a little bit more seriously, maybe they could have.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a bad idea. Maybe we shouldn't do this.
Maybe we should just stay the fuck out of other people's business.
And then Dick Cheney's like, but oil?
Yeah, and Halliburton?
Yeah, we need some oil. Mm-hmm. And how am I not going to make $100 million in oil revenues if we don't go kill a whole bunch of brown people?
Yeah, let's use the U.S. military right now, because I don't want to necessarily hire 80,000 mercenaries to do this job.
Yeah, we're gonna start off with U.S. soldiers and then eventually hire mercenaries. Yeah, we're gonna call them independent contractors.
Right.
And yeah,
so fucking disgusting.
There's also one other moment I'll mention that's really interesting, where the colonel there is actually like playing shots, like footage that they've shot of like these checkpoints, and you see like some of the people who are kind of revolutionaries in amongst the other. He's doing the thing that this film was then used in 2003. So there's a real kind of meta element to that, of the fact that this film then kind of gets used that way. That was a fascinating little moment for me. Is see they were looking at that box, and that box might have had a false bottom, but they didn't check properly. No, it was the pretty girl they just walked by. That was who did that. Yeah, there's some pretty girls, and then there's like a lot of women in like hijabs or whatever, like passing pistols to people as well. Oh yeah, that's that's the way to do it.
It's this is a great film. It really is. Yeah. Budget was $800,000. Box office apparently domestically, so I'm assuming that's it's either the U.S. number or it's like the Italian number, I think, because it's an Italian like Algerian co-production kind of thing. $879,794. So it wasn't a big moneymaker, but I mean, go figure. This movie was blackballed and censored in a lot of places just by France. So
that's the U.S. domestic total.
Yeah. Okay.
It links to Box Office Mojo. So
yeah. So I imagine that's still technically kind of okay for this movie, because you can't think there was too much advertising going on for this film. There's that's just kind of the U.S. total, and they it's definitely made its money back in the long term. A film like this is not going to be the giant blockbuster, but. It served its purpose. It was, it made its money back. That's what these films do. Yeah. So first off, I'm just going to mention there's 3 or 4 versions of this on YouTube. Only one of them is worth checking. It's basically the one that says English subs in the title.
Yeah.
That's the one to check, because it's a good quality. The rest of them are like 240p or whatever. DVD info for this: Criterion Collection in 2004 of the DVD, and then 2011 Blu-ray. And all the versions you see online are all like basically the Criterion rips.
I ended up renting this from Amazon Prime, or Amazon for like $4 or something, and it was a gorgeous fucking print. So
nice.
If you're, I did check out the YouTube version. I did find a couple of them. They just didn't look quite as spiffy, so I was like, yeah, it's worth a little bit of extra to.
Yeah, there was a couple of the YouTube versions that were like, holy shit, why'd you even bother putting this up if you were gonna like?
I love when you find those and it's like, uploaded 11 years ago or something.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh yeah, well, that's probably all they had at that point.
Probably, yeah.
This was a different age.
You ripped it from your Criterion DVD, and that's what you got out of it.
You ripped it in 360p or whatever. And, you put it up, and It was fine.
240 or 144.
I remember like downloading movies in like the late 90s when I first got a T1 connection,
Yeah.
And like you download and it was like a 3 gigabyte file and it was, like it took up like half your hard drive. And so you could literally have like 4 movies like on your hard drive at all. So you literally like download it on like take a day to download and he'd watch it and then have to delete it immediately.
Yeah. So, Daniel, what are we doing next time?
I have no idea. I was hoping you had a suggestion. I was kind of thinking like doing another black and white something. I didn't really have anything in particular. I just kind of like the idea of doing 4 black and whites in a row. Ideally from like some director or writer that we haven't done before. But I'm kind of open. I mean, if you want to do, we had talked about maybe doing like a Pam Grier episode. Do Coffee and Foxy Brown, and we could do Buster Scruggs. Although I just watched that, so maybe take a couple of weeks and that one. But we're gonna do westerns coming up, so we might as well save it for that.
Yeah, we could jump into some blaxploitation because on my on our other little side podcast, Blood on the Tracks, the next 2 months I'm going to be doing more blaxploitation soundtracks and scores on that. So
well, yeah, let's just do Coffee and Foxy Brown. Let's just do them both.
Let's do it. All right,
done.
Easy
Neither
enough.
of which I've seen all the way through, so these will both be first time watches for me. So
cool. Get us some Pam Grier love into this motherfucker. Yeah.
We haven't had nearly enough Pam Grier in this podcast.
No, we have not. Yeah. So
I hate it. Let's do some blaxploitation as our black and white series. That's not this is not intentional. I promise. But
we're the cream. Pam Grier's the coffee. That's all there is to it.
Oh, this is the most racist one we've done yet.
Yeah, it was.
If this is as racist as we get, I think we're probably okay. But
it's beautiful racism. It's the best kind. But yeah,
how I feel about Pam Grier. The best kind of racism there is.
Someone's gonna clip that one.
Yeah. No, Court Psyops is gonna clip that one.
I told him he should clip from our shows. He should really get some sound bites going. But whatever. So Daniel, tell us about where people can find you and about your podcast that's very much against racism.
Yeah, no, we're playing this up a little bit and just kind of admitting we're a couple of white guys talking about this shit. All of this is meant in fun and not in any hostile way whatsoever. I do another podcast. We've done 3 episodes of it with Jack Graham, who's been on this podcast a few times, who recommended this movie to us. It's called I Don't Speak German, and it is conversations about the conversations that actually genocidal racists have, because I've spent the last 2 years following these people on the internet, and I have lots of things that I can tell you about them. And if you're interested in that, please go check that out. The 3rd episode came out this week, and it was an examination of the Unite the Right rally, which was the Charlottesville car attack, and we went into a lot of those details. And that was, if you think this one was a little bit kind of a depressing episode to listen to, go check that one out.
Yeah.
But, you can check me out there. Also, I'm at Daniel Lee Harper on Twitter if you want to, poke at me and tell me I suck or something. It's fine.
Yeah. Whatever is your whim, millennials on the internet, just, jump into it.
Yeah, I love that, I'm like 38 years old and I'm like, yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm like hip and young. And it's like, no. Nobody's like 21 on Twitter. They're like hanging out in like Discord chats and, doing it. It's like, it's like Twitter. That's like what my dad gets on. Come on, what are you talking about?
So it's weird.
Like, no, I get it. It's fine. Yeah.
And of course you can find us at tmbdos.podbean.com, where you can find our requisite links to Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Facebook. Join the Facebook group, They Must Be Destroyed on Sight on Facebook, where you can find out what's coming up on the podcast, and you can leave us movie suggestions and things like that. Eventually we get around to some of them.
After like 2 or 3 years we will finally do one, and then the original person that suggested it isn't even listening anymore because they gave up on it. So.
I can't even find their posts anymore because they're no longer a member of the group or something. Like Facebook erases them or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so until then, we're gonna be jumping into some blaxploitation. So I mean, we didn't necessarily plan Black History Month or anything like that, but it's gonna kind of coincide with that.
Yeah, basically. And then we've got some requests that are going to lead us into like doing some, we're going to do like Black Klansmen and we're going to do some stuff. And I swear it was not like intentional, like let's do that for February. It was just sort of like that's kind of where things were leading, and so we just went, we're going to do some of that. So
when I was thinking of what I was going to do for Blood on the Tracks, I was like mulling it over in my mind. It's like, what do I want to do? And it's like, I've got a shit ton of blaxploitation soundtrack shit that I haven't put up yet to talk about. And then after I compiled the list, and I was like, oh shit, this is going to come out in February. I did not plan this, but
we promise we don't really want to be that stereotype. It's just the way it's happening. So
yeah. But yeah, until then, thank you, Daniel. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you guys again next episode. Goodbye.
Cheers.
You have been listening to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. For other episodes, our links to Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and our Facebook group, as well as links to podcasts and websites of similar interest, please visit us at tmbdos.podbean.com. Thank you. Drive through.